Here is episode 8 of the History of MTWS. Finally got around to doing this. Last time I talked about the 2013 season that never was an actual season, just expeditions. But now for episode 8, I am going to talk about the 2014 season. Not only MTWS's return as an actual league and a season, but MTWS's 5th anniversary. Oh boy, this could be a long one. So get ready, it's story time. At the stroke of midnight on 2014, to begin the new year, I updated my site and my YouTube channel with MTWS's 5th anniversary. Man, it was a lot of work, and I got the logo made in time as best as I could right before the 5th anniversary began. Of course, I went with the 5th anniversary colors of sapphire and pink tourmaline, or basically blue and pink if you want to think of it that way. And after 2 years of not doing an actual season, I finally decided, after 2 years away, I was going to come back and do a season, as my life situation has gotten much better for me to continue doing so. And I was going to try and make this one hell of a season to remember as well, after missing out in 2013. So of course, to start off 2014, after I announced the 5th anniversary, I got to work on brand new trucks for the season, and it was going to be 7 trucks. And of course, I was originally going to show them right here in this episode, but of course, the 10th anniversary season came long after this video came out, so you all already saw those trucks. And those new trucks were Wrong Way Run, Mechanical Menace, Cyber, Bad Company, Big Crunch, and Revolution. There was a 7th truck, but I can't find it anymore. And I'm just considering it just straight up lost. I can't find it no matter how much I look for it. It was supposed to be 7 new trucks, and originally they were going to replace 7 other trucks, because the way the series was set up with 40 trucks, because at the time, although I had more than enough space for it, because normally MTM2 can only hold like so many trucks, and then with the patches and all you can have up to 99 pods at a time. It wouldn't be later on until I got expanded, which I'm going to get to later on, but I figured with 47 trucks, I did not see how I was going to have the even series. So I couldn't do 47, but I couldn't decide what trucks to delete. So eventually, soon after I made the trucks, I scrapped the idea. These trucks were not going to be running in the 2014 season, nor were they going to be competing in MTWS whatsoever. And of course, I still got to eventually release some of those trucks onto MTM2.com for everyone to download. But throughout the rest of January into February 2014, and also for some of those trucks back in 2013, like right before the Baltimore event, I began updating them for updated looks in 2014, as I started to begin using better effects on Photoshop as well, instead of just using paint like I've done the last 4 or 5 years pretty much. So that began the updates, which still continues to this day on Photoshop. It was finally April of 2014, and I announced the schedule for MTWS, and of course along the way, I didn't announce them all at first, but there was going to be some massive changes of MTWS going into 2014 that wasn't the case in 2012. First off, no locations for the trucks. I decided to cancel, forever stop doing them. 2, I did some schedule changes for now on in MTWS. There would now be 2 season openers and 2 season finales, one on the East Coast and then one following in the West Coast. There would also be a Thanksgiving event, which was the first time in MTWS at a different location each year. It would be also the first ever MTWS event on Thursdays, and there would be one international event which would be done outside of North America. And this year, we will be going back to Europe, where it would be in Arnhem in the Netherlands, and plus Mexico City and Toronto would become official locations like permanently in MTWS. And starting in 2014, the championship event would be permanently in Sam Boyd Stadium. Beforehand, the previous 4 years, I would rotate the city for the championship every year, with Vegas hosting it in 2010, but this time around, it would be actual Vegas style racing from the parking lot into Thunder Alley. And since I would choose Vegas to be the West Coast part of the 2014 season opener, it would be the first and so far only time in MTWS history where a city hosted 2 events in the same season. I also would change the formula of how events would be. From now on, every single regular season event would have 20 trucks each, and also every single truck would compete in the equal amount of events. Every truck would compete in, I believe it was either 11 or 12 events. 10 or 11 of them would be the regular season events, and the rest would compete in either the championship event or the runners-up cup, depending on how they do. That way, every truck has a fair, equal opportunity to get the same amount of points as everyone else. Because beforehand, it would usually be random, where a lot of trucks would get less appearances than others, and it was not fair how I did it back then. And also, of course, with it being the same field, that meant every truck had also the same opportunity to get the same amount of points in terms of racing freestyle, as long as they did as good. I changed the format around for the points series as well. And I also changed how freestyle scoring would work. Because at the time, I did 90-second regulation plus 30-second bonus time in 2012, which would make 40 the highest score possible in regulation, plus 5 bonus points to give the highest score possible, 45. But remember, in the 2013 Path of Destruction events, they changed bonus time so it goes up to 10 points instead of just 5. I figured giving out 10 points for 30 seconds would be too much, so I changed it so where bonus time was now 45 seconds. So now the entire freestyle would be 2 minutes and 45 seconds, and they can get up to 10 bonus points, given the highest possible score being 50. And since I got on Twitter that February of 2014, I changed my format of how I do non-live events, where instead I would do them on my website. Now I would do them on Twitter. Hashtag to MTWS 2014, whatever site the city was at, and I would post highlights and tweet out what's going on. But other than that, the 2014 season was almost ready to go, although there was some problems still. Remember, back in December of 2013, I got my new desktop, which I still have to this day right now making this video. And I finally got MTM2 on it, but there was a problem because the game will not film on fraps, which I still use at the time, if it can't get on properly full screen. And since the game cannot run properly on full screen on 1920 1080 screen monitor, which I have at the time and still do, I can't film with it. So I was kind of in a pickle of what am I going to do. And I was getting to the point where I might have to say, fuck it, I might have to continue filming MTWS on the Toshiba. There was nothing I could do. But thankfully, a couple things happened. One, by the summer 2014, MTM2.com released a community patch, which allowed to do a whole bunch of fixes to the game, which was nice and all. And one of the things that they did was add a fix to N-Glide, which is a program that allows you to play programs at higher resolutions than they normally supported. So once I did all that, bam! My problem was fixed just in time in August of 2014 to begin filming. And of course, by this time, I got a full version of Vegas Pro. So now, I could finally professionally edit the videos together instead of doing the old way, which I last did in 2013 in Baltimore, and it looks much better to this day. Although, some of the events I did with the first setup did not really go so well because I was still using Movie Maker at the time instead of doing only on Vegas Pro as I do to this day. Another problem I had at the time was some of the programs at first did not work for the desktop, or if they did work, it required a whole bunch of moving and all that crap that was not that easy. So because of that, I still made all the trucks and tracks and all that on my Dell, which I still use even though I haven't filmed on it in almost 4 years for MTWS. I would make the stuff on there and then transfer it over to my desktop. But by the end of the 2014 season openers, I finally got some of the stuff working right, and 2014 St. Louis was the last track I ever made exclusively on the Dell. I would still be making paints and all for the tracks on the Dell, but for the tracks themselves, I began making them on the desktop. But now, we get into the season openers. So, August 27th, 2014, the 2014 MTWS season was underway with the first of 2 season openers in Baltimore. As funny enough too, where MTWS last left off both for his regular season and the last event. So, of course, 20 trucks in the first opener on the East Coast and 20 trucks on the West Coast. Mad Dog ended up getting the #1 qualifier, which kind of would be a trend over the next few years. But despite that, the finals, Seismic Crush, going up against Patriot, and Patriot would get the win. And funny enough, Patriot, after winning racing, would actually try to go for the backflip for an encore and failed massively and flipped over. It was so funny. Then Freestyle started with Air Rage competing in its first ever regular season event to start Freestyle, got a 22. But during halfway through Freestyle, Aquatic Beast would actually get stuck inside the jammer next to the backflip semi-trailer and end up becoming an obstacle, and a whole bunch of trucks, I think, ended up trying to jump over it. But then, oh my goodness, Impala came out and went for Aquatic Beast, absolutely destroying it, and got a backflip. I think it was the first one of the night too, and had an incredible run, showing why it would become the future Freestyle King. And it would take the lead with a 35, and it would not relinquish it, as it would get the first of many Freestyle wins of 2014 to start off the year. Then we were out in Las Vegas for the West Coast season opener, and this would be another part of the 5th anniversary tribute. During their off season, when I repainted Predator, I gave the option, because this time I was going to have animated eyes, I gave people the option to vote between 4 colors. I think it was pink, blue, black, and gold, and in the end, blue won the vote, which is still Predator's eyes to this day, and it got to debut it. But the big moment in the Vegas event was Nitro. Remember, Nitro always did very good in Vegas in racing, but it actually struggled in qualifying. It ended up having to start off in round 1, surprisingly. So in the first race of round 1, it would have to face the Monster Razor, and the Monster Razor would give Nitro its first ever loss in Vegas, ending its 16-0 run. Some incredible racing highlights, but in the end, it would be Outlaw going up against Bling, surprisingly, in the finals. But Outlaw, the defending racing champion, showed why it was, as it would beat Bling to win racing. And Freestyle, just like in Baltimore with Air Rage, Locomotion competed in its first ever regular season event Freestyle, but unfortunately flipped too early, only got a 16. Several trucks would come out after like halfway through Freestyle. Badass, the rising star in Freestyle, would put up an incredible run and shoot into the lead with a 36, just like it almost did in the event back in October on this track. In the end, it was down to just one truck. Outlaw, the defending Freestyle champion too, would put up one of the best runs probably in MTWS history at the time. And at the time, not only would it win, it would get the highest score at the time ever of 45, including getting 9 bonus points, which I believe was the highest ever done in MTWS history. And not only with this, Outlaw would start off the year as the defending champion, not only double down, but getting the first sweep since Eruption did it back in Seattle in October of 2012. Now that is a start to a season. Over the next few shows, I actually started practicing more with editing the terrain of the map, because beforehand I would only do like obstacles, but I started to finally start doing ramps, which I did in St. Louis 2014, which, by the way, like I said, was the last track I fully made on the Dell. After that, most of the tracks would be made on the desktop, but the paints and all would still be done on my Dell. And then in the next several shows, including Jacksonville and Anaheim, I did more unique racing setups too, with Jacksonville being a combination of St. Louis and Anaheim style. And then in Anaheim, I did my own custom spin-off of the Anaheim style racing. And then MTWS was back live over a month later, back in Arlington for the first time since 2012. As I decided, of course, like in the 10th anniversary, I wanted to have this for the 5th anniversary live shows, as this was the first ever live event in MTWS history. Remember, back in 2009. The event was crazy. Crush and Run got the #1 qualifier. How about that? Outlaw was #2 as well. And then the finals. How about this? I believe it was the first time they've raced each other since the 2012 championship. Crush and Run and Outlaw in the finals. And once again, Outlaw would show why it won the racing title 2 years earlier, as it beat Crush and Run in the finals. Freestyle would be tough and crazy. We saw a whole bunch of crazy flips throughout the night as well, including some more highlights like Predator going for the first reverse backflip of the year. Then later on, Mad Dog came out and showing why it was the 2009 Freestyle Champion, put up an incredible run, and near the end of its run, it went for the backflip, ended up corkscrewing it because the trailer was crushed a lot, and ended up breaking the forelink on Landon, ended its run, but it took the lead with a 35. Crazy came out, but fell short with a 35, and then Outlaw came out, had an incredible run, went into bonus time, but stuffed it, flipped violently into the side of the hill, ended its run early, only getting a 35, and Mad Dog would win freestyle. After Arlington, we went to Toronto, where Nitro would once again win in its hometown in racing, and Impala put up an incredible freestyle to get the win with a 42. Then we went to Atlanta. Oh god, that was crazy. Crush and Run got #1 qualifier. Blood Rage beat Eruption to win racing in its old hometown, and Power Forward would go on to win freestyle. But also in the freestyle, Blood Rage went for a double down, went off the side and got stuck on the double. It burnt its transmission, and then later on Mad Dog at the end of its run came out, went for an encore after it flipped too early, and destroyed Blood Rage, who was still stuck on the side of the double. And of course, here was the picture of when it did it back in October of 2014. And then in Indianapolis, it was incredible. Nitro got the #1 qualifier, but in the end, it would be Flying Falcon stunning everyone by getting the double down, beat Outlaw in the finals, and then would get the win with freestyle. That was an incredible double down no one expected. Then in New York the next week, first time there since 2011, Nitro once again get the #1 qualifier, but once again falls short, as it would be Shatter getting a double down too. How about that? 2 back-to-back double downs. And then MTWS went to Oakland for the first time ever, which, by the way, I still actually have that track, believe it or not, because I still use its template for the backflip wall, which I perfected at that show, and I decided to keep it ever since because I didn't want to lose it and have to remake it. So I actually still have that Oakland 2014 track, just with all the obstacles gone and replaced and all. But this night, its debut was incredible. Blood Rage would get the #1 qualifier, Crazy Bull would get the racing win, and then Crazy Bull decided to go for the double down too, had an incredible run, put up a 39, it was incredible, but Eliminator came out last, did a huge run, hit everything out there full throttle, got 3 backflips, a massive cyclone to get the win by 1 point of 40, and all the backflips at the show were landed perfectly 100%, which was, I believe, the first time ever in MTWS history all backflips were successful. And that's why, still to this day, I still have the template for backflips in my tracks. Well, I had to actually re-edit the video because apparently I forgot to add this. But anyways, back around the end of October 2014, I did the first ever MTWS Monster Jam crossover, which was an additional event, which is why I believe I did not do a live MTWS event in October so I could focus on this. This was a special 32 truck event in Sandboy Stadium with 16 trucks from Monster Jam and 16 trucks from MTWS, like the all-stars of the two leagues. This kind of reminds me of the All-Star Challenge back last October. Remember Team Fire and Ice? This time being Team MTWS and Team Monster Jam. And I made a track with, on one side, purple and yellow, which was Monster Jam's colors at the time, and I made the obstacles like Monster Jam, like a whole bunch of dirt and no cars really at the time. And on the other side would be gray and red for MTWS's colors, and a lot more cars and a whole bunch of others to contrast how the two leagues make their tracks. And of course, with 3 victories possible: qualifying, racing, and freestyle. So at the end of qualifying, MTWS would dominate in qualifying, with the first 4 or 5 trucks in qualifying being all MTWS related. The fastest qualifier for Monster Jam, Damon Bradshaw Monster Energy, was, I believe, 0.45 hundredths of a second behind Outlaw, who was the #1 qualifier. Incredible. What a dominant performance MTWS had in qualifying. And for the finals, we thankfully were able to get in MTWS Monster Jam finals, as MTWS would be represented by Impala, and Monster Jam side would be represented by Lindsay Wink and Lucas Oil Crusader. But Impala would win race in the end, giving MTWS not only a 2-0 edge, but winning the series with just freestyle to go and possibly hoping to sweep it. But it would not be the case, as Tyler Duke and Metal Militia, showing why it was the defending freestyle champion in Monster Jam at the time, dominant freestyle, put up an incredible freestyle that would Duke leap, backflips, and were full of momentum and would get the win to prevent the sweep. As in the end of the event, MTWS won qualifying racing, Machem won freestyle, and MTWS won the whole series 2-1. There was a one-time thing. If it was possible, maybe I could have considered doing it in the future, but in order for me to do this again, I need to get all the trucks in Machem currently up to date, because that was a lot of work. A lot of those trucks I had to actually make for myself for MTM2, and 6 years later, the trucks have changed dramatically, so, I mean, this could be possible, but I need help making those trucks on here if you want to see that event coming back. But with this addition out of the way that I forgot to add, back to the rest of the original video. And then, oh dear God, the next 2 months would probably be hell for me, as it would be like the busiest months in MTWS history. November, oh geez, would be a very busy one. But it started off in Mexico City, which would be the first time ever MTWS would permanently go to Mexico City. Wild Ride would get the #1 qualifier, Thunderbolt would beat MTWS to win racing, and Impala would get revenge on its arch rival and win freestyle in a landslide with a 46-7 point lead. And Viva La Mexico, a Mexican themed truck I made for that event, would make its debut in the Encore, and of course I would remake that several years later. But then, oh dear God, hell would begin for me, as our next event would be live in Miami, where, in a really weird version of St. Louis style, Destroyer would get the #1 qualifier, but in the end it would be Crusher beating Wild Ride in the finals, as Wild Ride, I believe, screwed up, or someone screwed up, and Crusher would get, if not its first racing win in years, possibly its first ever racing win. And then freestyle would be the first ever win, as MTWS would finally get its first ever freestyle win, a 41, blowing out the competition too. How fitting for the 5th anniversary to finally get its first win. Then the next week was going to be the first ever event in Ford Field in Detroit, and this event was originally not going to be live, but due to circumstances, it ended up being live, which, of course, looking back now, I have no idea how I did that. So many live events, and of course, you're going to be seeing how crazy this is a few weeks later on. But I actually did back-to-back live events. I don't know how or why I did that, despite the circumstances. But of course, if this happened now, I would not be able to do this. But I'm still impressed how I was able to do it. But in the end, it would be Nitro getting the #1 qualifier, edging out everyone in a blowout fashion, and we actually got a very rare race, not between Thunderbolt and Impala, and even more rare, Impala actually beating Thunderbolt. And then in the finals, oh boy, Outlaw and Nitro going at the huge arch rivalry, and Nitro would get the win this time around. Freestyle was crazy. Impala would end up winning it with a 43, but in freestyle, it would be the first time ever in MTWS history where a truck, Thunderbolt in this case, would freestyle on 3 wheels. It broke one of its wheels off in the event, and it continued on. Because I finally knew how to continue a run with a broken truck with 3 wheels. Beforehand, I did not know how to do it, so I would end the runs usually by then. But now I knew how to do it, so I was able to continue off the run. Thunderbolt, of course, tried its best, but of course on 3 wheels in that game with how the wheel is. Because technically, for all of you who don't know, the wheel is still actually on the truck. It's just placed somewhere else. I think like not in the back. I think it's like put on top of the other front tire, so they're like meshed together, combined together, and really mess up the steering, but it's the only way to get 3-wheel drive on there. And it was just weird. Unfortunately, Thunderbolt just ended up too short of a run. But hey, it was a cool moment in MTWS history, and to this day it's happened only one other time, and of course that was Outrage in Arlington this past June. And then the next week, another live event, this time for the International Series event out in Arnhem, Netherlands. And for all of you who didn't know, I don't think I mentioned this in the 2010 event. It might have been something I forgot about. But I originally was going to go to the Netherlands in 2010 for the first International Series event. But unfortunately, I couldn't do it. So it didn't happen until 4 years later when we finally went there. And an all-star studded field. Thunderbolt would be its arch rival Impala in qualifying to get the #1 qualifier. But Brayson would be Blood Rage going up against Crazy Bull in the finals, with Blood Rage getting the win. And oh boy, the track would be quite a truck killer. A lot of trucks struggled on that track, and Shatter and Impala would both win with a 40. 35 in regulation, 5 bonus points exactly, surprisingly. And they would get the first tie in a couple years, actually, if I'm correct. But it was an awesome debut for Arham for MTWS. Hope to come back there one day in the future. But then after that, oh geez, just 4 days later, the rest of the trucks that didn't go to Arham went down to Washington, D.C., well, technically Landover, for the first event on Thanksgiving, which would be a tradition now in MTWS. As, oh boy, with most of the big guns out in Arham, you figured a whole bunch of new trucks might have a chance to shine here, maybe get a win, but nope. There were some other really good veterans here, of course. Eruption would get the #1 qualifier. Power Ford would prevent from getting a race and win, as it would win racing in the finals. And then Shadowrun, of course, would finally get its big break in freestyle, would put up an incredible run, take the lead with a 33, and had the lead until the final truck came out, Nitro, who would put up an even incredible run and put up a 43, would win freestyle by 10 points, which I believe is the most lopsided victory in MTWS history. 10 points, think about that. 10 points. And then finally, after 4 straight events live, I finally got a break 3 days later as we went to New Orleans. And in that event, Crazy Bull would get #1 qualifier. But the finals, oh geez, the finals was incredible, as it would be Impala going up against its arch rival Thunderbolt. A very rare finals appearance for them. And Impala would get, once again, another rare racing win against it. Incredible. But Crazy in the end would win with an incredible freestyle, which ended up with shattering the previous record 3 days later in Washington by winning freestyle by 12 points of 46 over Thunderbolt's 34. Stunning. Absolutely stunning. Back in November, I actually would begin adding race source chassis to the trucks, which I actually got my hands on sometime recently from Rigs of Rods. And I thought at first it would be so cool to add them on here because they're more recent frames and all, but of course later on into the next year and so, I would eventually remove them because the trucks just did not handle as well with them. And also, the model for the race source was gigantic. I mean gigantic. It would make the game lag if I didn't like cut down the size. That's how big it was. But of course, during that time, in November of 2014, that's when I began adding them on. But now into December of 2014, this was another very busy month. It began in Houston with Patriot getting the #1 qualifier and Shatter getting the double down, beating Outlaw 3 times that night, beating qualifying, beating the finals in racing, and beat by 2 points in freestyle to get the freestyle win. And of course, that event qualifying had the 3 fastest qualifiers all within 1%, 0.01 hundredths of a second of each other. Incredible. Then after that, we'd be down in Tampa for another live event. As, oh boy, we're gonna find out what I'm gonna be talking about in a second. Once again, another stunner. Flying Falcon get the #1 qualifier by 1/100th of a second over Crazy Bull to prevent a tie. And then it would be Crazy Bull beating MTWS in the finals to win another race. And of course, Crazy Bull actually came out first to freestyle and went out to go for a double out. Start off with a 33. It was an incredible run, but it wouldn't last for long. In fact, Crazy Bull would actually finish 6th place in freestyle despite that high score. Nitro would get the freestyle win by 1 point over Eliminator. Then the next week, of course, in Foxborough, was another event that originally was not going to be live, but ended up being so due to the circumstances. My god, I still have no idea how I did that back then. But in the end, MTWS got the #1 qualifier, but Blood Rage would beat Outlaw in the finals, and Outlaw would get revenge as it would win freestyle by a big 3-point lead over Nitro to get itself in position to go for another title defense. And then December 28th, the moment began. The season finales. Remember in the season openers back in August, we had 2 of them, one in Baltimore, one in Las Vegas. This time, one in Philadelphia, and then finally to wrap it up in San Diego. And of course, all the trucks were going to go as crazy as possible in these last 2 events because those 24 championship spots were still up for grabs, and anyone can get them. They're going to have to go as hard as they can. So in Philadelphia, Outlaw would get the #1 qualifier by 1/100th of a second over Thunderbolt. That's how close it was. And the finals looked like it was going to be a preview of the racing finals, as it would be Outlaw and Nitro. Multiple times they've gone up against her this year, and this time around Nitro would get revenge and beat Outlaw. Freestyle would have some incredible highlights. Patriot going for a really hard double down. Mad Dog flipping from the back, flip wall into the protective area, into the wall of the stadium. That was incredible. But once again, Outlaw, once again showing why it was the freestyle champion, winning freestyle and setting ourselves some good momentum to go and defend his title in the championship. And then, to wrap up the season, would be in San Diego, as Crazy Bull would get the #1 qualifier. And in the end, in the finals, Fireball would beat Eruption, a big win right there to get itself in contention to get to the championship. And then freestyle, oh god, this was incredible. We had, I believe, the first ever freeway tie for freestyle in MTWS history. Shadowrun, Topsy Turvy, and Crazy Bull all tied with a 32. Topsy Turvy and Shadowrun had the higher regulation score, but Crazy Bull had the better bonus time score to keep the tie in. And if it wasn't for Bling getting a 1 point short, we could have had a 4-way tie. And then Fireball was also 1 point short. We could have had a 5-way tie. Think of how close that would be. And of course, to wrap up freestyle would be Crazy going for, oh my god, one incredible move where it would line up for a boat that I put on top of a step up and knocked it down, but flipped over on top of it and its run short. Oh geez, if it went for it later on, that run would have probably maybe gotten the win, because 32, as you saw, that year was pretty easy to beat, but just fell short. And it was because of Shadowrun and Topsy Turvy's incredible wins in freestyle was the main reason how they managed to get to the championship. Showing how important it is to do good in that last 2 events, otherwise you might not get into the championship. It was now January 2015 as we began to wrap up the regular season, but first up was the 2014 MTWS Runners-Up Cup, which of course we were going to be back in Vegas, and this was going to be the first ever Runners-Up Cup where it was freestyle. It changed the format around somewhat. It was going to be the Runners-Up Cup racing. Of course, the qualifying would be a day beforehand. Then it would be qualifying for the actual 2014 championship, and then it would be freestyle for the Runners-Up Cup. Yep, I actually included an addition from the Runners-Up Cup in 2012, where now it would be freestyle. So all the remaining trucks would freestyle on the track, and the Runners-Up Cup track itself would be a preview of what would be coming in the 2014 championship. Because remember, in 2014 was the first year Monster Jam did the World Finals on 2 nights, and they would rip up the track for race and change it to freestyle. This was basically MTWS's equivalent to it. The center jump, the triple, the giant step up with all the cars on each side, the backflip semi-trailer, the semi-trailer and the fountain all being there for the 2014 championship track itself. So the day before, Flying Falcon would get the #1 qualifier easily after falling so short of making it to the championship. And in the finals, it would be 2 trucks that I thought were going to make it to championship, but fell short, of course. And as always for the Runners-Up Cup, like the best racers in that night make it there, as it'd be Flying Falcon going up against the Monster Razor. But Flying Falcon would hold on and get the win to win the 2014 Runners-Up Cup racing win. Qualifying for MTWS 2014 Championship was soon afterwards, and for the first time ever, Eruption would get back-to-back title, #1 qualifiers. That was the first time ever in MTWS history it happened. Of course, back-to-back, and first time ever someone got 2 #1 qualifiers. But after qualifying, we got right back to the 2014 Runners-Up Cup. And a lot of trucks tried their best out there, because their last show, they went out more than they would normally would. But in the low scoring one, Badass would get the win with a 31, surprisingly. Really short, just edging out Kaibutsu Shireen with a 30, and Hearts of Blazing came out last, put up a really good run, but flipped right before bonus time to prevent from getting the win that it most likely would have gotten. So Badass would win the first ever freestyle in the Runners-Up Cup, and of course would be the final freestyle it would compete in, but I won't get to that till the 2015 video. February 7th, 2015, the 2014 MTWS Championship was ready to go, in the latest date possible for the championship too. So late, it was the first championship that happened after the Super Bowl. And in fact, that event, I was actually going to do a special Super Bowl themed camper for a bonus obstacle, but of course that was Super Bowl. Patriots beat the Seahawks, and of course the way the game ended, it rubbed me the wrong way so much that I ended up not doing it. You should have ran the fucking ball, Seahawks. But with that out of the way, there was so much expectation and hype for what would happen. Could Outlaw double down again? Could Eruption break the streak and actually get a racing titles #1 qualifier? Who knows what would happen? So, the first incredible highlight, Eruption breaking the streak where it would beat MTWS in round 2, being the only other #1 qualifier besides Nitro in 2010 to get a win as #1 qualifier. Because remember, historically in the MTWS, the #1 qualifier would actually be one and done. So if that happened, all the expectations were high for, oh shit, Eruption actually could win it now since that actually happened. And then later on in round 2, Thunderbolt would beat Topsy Turvy, but violently flipped into the triple, badly destroying the bye, and it was a wonder if Thunderbolt would come back in time. We then got to the quarterfinals, and the matchups were sick. Crush and Run would beat Eruption, making Eruption be the first #1 qualifier to win a race but not make it to the finals in the championship. Then Nitro beating a badly broken Thunderbolt in a photo finish race. That was incredible how close it was. Outlaw would beat Blood Rage, which would be the championship just a year later, and then Fireball edging out Patriot. So it was now the semifinals. To start off the semifinals would be a rematch from the semifinals just last year in this exact moment. Crush and Run, Nitro, 2 years ago. They were fighting to get into the finals, and here they are once again trying to make it there. And once again, Crush and Run would beat Nitro to make it back to the finals. The first time ever a truck that lost the finals, the previous championship, making it back to the finals. And then Outlaw beating Fireball, making it back to the finals, being the first ever truck to make it back-to-back finals besides Crush and Run, and the first ever defending champion in racing to do so. So for the first time ever in MTWS history, we had a rematch. Not only a rematch in the finals, but the first ever back-to-back finals. Crush and Run and Outlaw, they were the finalists in 2012. Outlaw got that. Crush and Run looking to try and get revenge. And then the race was underway. Crush and Run struggled out of Thunder Alley, but in the end, Outlaw went way too wide in the turn, and Crush and Run would make it up and get the win. Crush and Run, after all the years of struggling, after falling short 2 years ago of getting a racing title, finally got it. It was the 2014 racing champion, just edging out its arch rival Outlaw. Then became Freestyle on at the time, the toughest track in MTWS history. As for this track, I actually brought out a house for the track as well, on top of the step-ups, tabletop that I used in the Runners-Up Cup, and I put containers around it so it would prevent anyone from going up the stack, because I want someone to go for the step-up and destroy the house. Well, it wouldn't be for long. The second truck out, Crush and Run, maybe trying to go for a double down, or so excited after winning racing, would have a really good freestyle. Went for the backflip first time of the night, and actually would destroy the house in bonus time. Of course, it got stuck on top of the tabletop into the debris of the house, and of course stuck with the containers blocking away, so we had to take down the house and tow down Crush and Run from there, but it would take the lead with a 29. Several trucks came by, but no one could beat Crush and Run until Predator came out, had a really good run, and landed the first ever reverse backflip in the championship history, and ended up tying Crush and Run with a 29 as well. Several trucks came afterwards. Blood Rage, Prowler came up short of a 28, but then a big moment halfway through Freestyle. One, we brought out a brand new obstacle, which has never been done in Monster Jam, I don't think, ever, or any Monster Truck event, where I had a huge crane bring out a camper, towing it in the air, so someone can knock it down like a piñata. And then Eruption. During racing, it ran its normal Gravedigger body, but for Freestyle, it was put in a hangar on top of one of the stadiums, the walls near Thunder Alley, with a car on it to start off its freestyle. It would come out debuting a brand new body, which it was Son of a Digger, and it was a beautiful paint, and it put up an incredible run. Huge air, knocked the pinata-like camper down from its the crane, and ended up taking the lead with a 30. What an incredible run it was to show off that new paint job and look like, good run. Maybe it could challenge for the lead. The win, maybe. It would not last for Eruption, as 2 trucks later, Power Forward, in probably like its last really good freestyle, take the lead with a 32 and put itself in really good contention now, as there are a bunch of trucks still to go, but it looked like Power Forward might have gotten a chance now. The next bunch of several trucks actually struggled on the track. Thunderbolt flipped too early, Shatter flipped too early, MTWS flipped too early, so many trucks flipped too early. It was unfortunate. And it was down to just 5 trucks remain to take on Power Forward's 32. Next up was the 2009 Freestyle Champion Mad Dog. Put up a really good run, flipped early, but it was just enough to tie Power Forward for 32. And this time, though, there was a system in place to prevent a tie if it happened this time around, unlike in 2011. But it would not matter. Next up would be Nitro. 4 years ago on this track was the runner-up for the freestyle title. 2 years ago, it was runner-up again for the freestyle title, just being edged out by Outlaw, and it almost made to the finals again this time around, being beaten by Crush and Run again. This time, however, it was not going to be settling for second place. It wanted to win, and it was going to get it. Nitro put up the highest scoring freestyle win championship run in MTWS history of 40, including one of the most memorable jumps in MTWS history, near the end of its bonus time, where it went for a cross thread from a jammer on top of triple and got a huge, beautiful, crooked sky wheelie, landing in the Thunder Alley, flat landing it too. It was incredible. It just continued on. It filled the run. It went on for like another 4 or 5 minutes or something like that. Almost burned out the transmission, and Outlaw did it. Nitro did it. 40. 3 trucks left. If Nitro did not somehow win this, it would be both stunning and it would show how well the Flash Free Trucks did to get the win. Crazy. The former Freestyle King, who actually lost its Freestyle King title to Impala throughout the year, who struggled all year, finally had a really good freestyle, but it struggled throughout the night. It didn't do as good of a freestyle as it wanted to, but it was good enough to get second place though for 35. Then Impala came out, and it was putting up an incredible run, beating everything Nitro did, and then even went for the credible crooked sky wheelie that Nitro did in regulation instead, but it didn't get enough air and ended up hitting the side of a step jammer and flipped over way too early on a violent flip, only getting to 26. The door was now set for Outlaw, who lost its racing title but still had a chance to get a freestyle title. It decided to go for a Metal Militia jump to get things started, and went right for the semi-trailer. Got huge air, but unfortunately did not get enough air and tapped the box fan that was inside the fountain like it was in World Finals 8, and nosedived and went over, flipped, did not have enough momentum, flip it back over, and fell short with a 10. The lowest scoring run by a defending champion in MTWS history to defend its title. Outlaw, of course, very, very upset about this, decided to go out for an encore to make it up for the crowd, but it wouldn't matter. In the end, Nitro finally did it. It would win its first freestyle title, joining Outlaw as one of 2 trucks to not only have a racing freestyle title, but have multiple titles. And it felt so good for Nitro. 4 years ago, almost had its first freestyle title after once racing title. 2 years ago, almost got its freestyle title again, being beat by Outlaw, but this time got to beat Outlaw at its own game and finally get its freestyle win. Then we had a whole bunch of trucks came out for encore to celebrate the wrap up of the 5th anniversary, including a lot of trucks that flipped way too early in freestyle. Pokemon came out to celebrate Team Pokemon coming back, and MTWS, the 5th anniversary, came out for one final encore before I brought out the new version that for 2015, including this brand new logo that I made for 2015, looking much better than the original that I had from 2011 to 2013. But with that, not only was the 2014 season over, the 2000 being the 5th anniversary was over. And I already had plans for 2015. MTWS was coming back for 2015, another season. But unbeknownst to me at the time, although I might have had a sinking feeling about this, it would eventually be, as of this moment, 2020, the last regular season event in MTWS history. But that's another time. Thank you all for watching the History of MTWS episode number 8, I believe it was, as I talked about the 2014 5th anniversary season. See you guys next time, where I talk about the last ever season in MTWS history, a 2015 season. See you guys then, and oh my god, 42 minutes long. This is probably the longest ever episode, because that was a lot of shit I had to talk about. See you guys then.